When President Trump showed the photographs of crosses along the highway, instead of President Ramaphosa saying, well, I've never seen that, he should have said categorically, that is not my country. We do not put grave sites along highways. If there were that many white people that had been murdered by black people, I would know. Do not come to the United States looking like beggars. You have a lot that the United States wants. You have a lot that the world wants. Stand up tall. Have the to stand up like any other man on earth and defend us. As Africans, we are counting on you. Africans are supposed to come to the United States with their best negotiators, and they need to leave the best deal that can be had on behalf of their people. If you look at what is coming out of Africa through exploitation of our natural resources, there is no comparison to the aid. How long have we been getting aid, and what do we have to show for it? If it was about looking for poor people, there are plenty of poor people. Tell it to Mayor Bass in Los Angeles. It's not about gallivanting around the world, going around 10,000 miles away from the United States looking for poor people, when there are millions of poor people right here in the United States. Charity begins at home. Let's be serious, people. Do not be fooled. USAID was not going to Africa looking for poor people. Far from it. They have a different agenda. There are poor people here, right here in America. And until we start seeing USAID flags in the streets of Los Angeles, taking care of all the homeless people, until we start seeing USAID flags in the reservations, American Indian reservations, Africa needs trade and not aid.
Dr. Chihombori-Quao, the mother of activism in Africa, has just done an interview and she absolutely destroyed Cyril Ramaphosa. Of course, she was talking about the interactions with Donald Trump at the meeting that happened last month. And she also touches on some other issues. And I'm going to react to the things she said right now.
I see it as a step in the right direction when President Trump is inviting African leaders for a conversation to do with trade. This is an opportunity that African leaders were not awarded by the colonizers, the European nations, when they set out to exploit the continent of Africa. I see it as an opportunity for the African leaders to see a pathway where they can actually truly negotiate the trade between their nations and the United States in a fair and equitable manner. President Trump's global politics, geopolitics, his policies when it pertains to trade, I think it's opening a new era, a new chapter for Africa, an opportunity for the Africans to go onto the world stage and trade with the most powerful country on earth in a manner that they can also put not only their national agenda forward, not only their regional agenda forward, but also the continental agenda. What we are experiencing today on earth, the environment that has been created by President Trump, is an environment that made the best men win. If the African leaders come to the United States and they fail to come up with a deal that is going to truly represent the wishes of their countries, then the joke is on the leaders. So yes, I do see President Trump inviting African leaders to come to the negotiating table as a step in the right direction. It is now up to the African leaders as to how well they are in negotiating with one of the best deal makers that we have so far on the world stage. It's now up to the African leaders.
I totally agree with this. It's up to the African leaders to set their stall out and say, look, this is what we can offer you, but what are you going to offer us? The deals have not been favorable. And this shouldn't have been done in the public eye as we saw the public meeting. This part should have been done behind the scenes. Publicly, they should have kept their cards close to their chest. I said this in the video when I first reacted about it. And they should just negotiate behind closed doors with strength and in a manner that looks for parity and equality. Sadly, of course, we saw quite a weak showing, a lot of bootlicking, a lot of public bootlicking, which was really not to my taste.
Basically, I like the idea that President Trump is willing to come to the negotiating table. However, if African leaders are going to come to the United States, like President Ramaphosa did, where he clearly looked like a beggar, wherein lies the problem. President Trump is a deal maker. If you look at the manner in which he treated President Ramaphosa and his team, President Ramaphosa and his team clearly were not prepared. They should have known they're coming to negotiate. They should have had their game plan together. And so I would blame President Ramaphosa for coming to the United States unprepared. May the best man win. That's what this moment is calling for. President Trump, of course, is going to want to negotiate the best deal for his country, but these African leaders must come also prepared. My position would be African leaders should come and meet with President Trump, hear what he has to say, go back and re-strategize, come up with your game plan, and then give feedback. If you are not prepared, you need to make sure that this moment is calling for free trade as nations in an equitable and fair manner. Now, if you end up with the short end of the stick as an African leader, the joke is on you. There are lots of intelligent, brilliant Africans who can come in and negotiate with the Americans. President Trump and his team are going to kick your rear, and they don't play. And the African leaders need to know that. So they need to realize when they come to negotiate with President Trump, they're entering a battlefield that says you need to bring your bunker buster of knowledge as you begin to negotiate with the United States. They're not playing, and they need to know the stakes are very high, but also stakes that are going to take Africa where Africa can actually truly beneficiate and benefit from their natural resources in a manner that is not parasitic, like the relationship African countries have had with Europe. So the United States is saying no more parasitic relationships, but may the best men win. Africans are supposed to come to the United States with their best negotiators, and they need to leave the best deal that can be had on behalf of their people. The people who chose them to lead, the people who are expecting them to do what they must do in order to utilize their natural resources for the benefit of their people, and not the relationship African countries have had with Europe.
I think it's an excellent point she made that we have excellent negotiators. And I don't want to hear any nonsense that Africa doesn't, because Africa sends its best and brightest into the West, and they become fantastic businessmen. They become entrepreneurs and CEOs. We've got Nigerians all over the place doing amazing things in the private sectors of all these countries around the world. These are the types of people we need to get together and say, be a negotiator for Africa, be a negotiator for your home country. And diaspora aside, there's minds like that even in the country. But does the leadership pick up these people? These are the people that needs to be in the meetings when you're sitting there with Trump and his negotiators, because you better believe they've got the top guys on their side of the table.
When President Trump showed the photographs of crosses along the highway, that was a no-brainer. Instead of President Ramaphosa saying, well, I've never seen that, I would have to look into that, he should have said categorically, that is not my country. We do not put grave sites along highways. If there were that many white people that had been murdered by black people, I would know. And I can tell you categorically that those photos are not coming from my country. When he was shown photographs of people in body bags, one of his people could have equally looked at that picture and asked AI. In a matter of seconds, you would have found out that those photographs were coming from the DRC. But instead, once again, he should have said, categorically, that is not happening in my country. If there were that many white people being killed by black people in my country, I would know. But instead, again, he was, well, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into it. Let me tell you, he was defeated right from the beginning. He was not prepared. He did not have his game together. And then when he asked the foreign minister, the Minister of Agriculture, who is a white man and who is over the land reform in South Africa, he expected the white men to cover him and say categorically, I am a white man, I am the Minister of Agriculture, and we are carrying out the land reform. There is no white genocide in South Africa. But what did the minister say? Well, Mr. President, you are right. We have a problem. What on earth were they thinking? And then at the end of it all, they're busy talking about golf. I think these guys who came with President Ramaphosa, they came just to shake hands with President Trump and then talk about golf. They were not serious about the discussions at hand. So yes, I have to say, I blame President Ramaphosa. He did not take a position of a leader. He should have categorically said, there is no white genocide in my country. And those photographs, Mr. President, they are false. That is not happening in my country. But instead, he looked like a puppy dog that had been beaten up and really could not answer. He looked like a leader who really didn't know that those horrible things could be happening in your country, and you do not know. African leaders need to know that President Trump and his team are not playing. It is a battlefield when you go to the White House. You need to go to that battlefield with your boxing gloves of knowledge, with your bazookas of knowledge, with your bunker busters of knowledge. No playing games, because you got 1.4 billion people counting on you. It's a game changer. When we look at the global policies that President Trump is introducing to the world, when he got rid of USAID, technically he was basically weakening the CIA, the agents through which regime changes have been carried out. We need to celebrate that. When President Trump is saying, let's come to the table and negotiate as equal, we need to celebrate that. When we lose on that battlefield, the joke is on us. So African leaders, I am saying, wake up. A new era is being introduced. Let's take advantage of it, and let's put in our best negotiators.
And I totally agree that he was ill prepared. You know, I would go as far as to say that he really needed to switch the tables back on Trump. Everywhere on the news prior to Ramaphosa's visit, there was all this talk of genocide, genocide, genocide. Ramaphosa should have come with his own information. And I agree, he should have been able to quickly debunk the images that he put on the screen. And wouldn't it have been amazing if he could have said, you know, Trump, you always talk about fake news. And here you are posting fake news here in front of the world. If you want to play this video up here, fine, in front of the world. But let me now do something public. Let's take $100,000 for every single one of those graves. And if they are related to white people's deaths, I will give that 100,000 to each family of each one of those graves. But if they are not, and if your information is incorrect, I expect a public apology. Shake. Let's deal with that. You see, Donald Trump came in with such a blow to Ramaphosa publicly that he needed to have something as powerful to fire back with, to put Trump on the back foot, to show Trump that we're not playing here on the continent of Africa. But sadly, that didn't happen. I think also the point about the white foreign minister was right on the money. He should have been able to stand up and say, I'm a white South African. I'm here with the president. I'm proud of my country. And I can tell you categorically, there is no genocide happening right now in South Africa. Yes, we have problems, but to try and group it anywhere close to anything to do with the genocide is absolutely incorrect. And it pales in comparison to what was done to the black people and the colored people of South Africa during the apartheid regime. This way, it would have showed a stronger, united front. It would have shown strength and solidarity. Trump is more than happy to use black reporters, black African reporters, to push his message of propaganda or whatever he wants to put forward. He's happy to use General Michael Langley to come and talk to African leaders, an African American. He's happy to use Arikana Chihombori-Quao, who just come in from Congo, to talk about giving Donald Trump a Nobel Peace Prize. Well, let's fight fire with fire. Here is a white South African that's going to do the same thing, but for the benefit of South Africa. We need to play the game that Trump and the United States are playing on the level that Trump is playing. This is how you fight fire with fire.
When we look at the global policies that President Trump is introducing to the world, when he got rid of USAID, technically he was basically weakening the CIA, the agents through which regime changes have been carried out. We need to celebrate that. When President Trump is saying, let's come to the table and negotiate as equal, we need to celebrate that. When we lose on that battlefield, The joke is on us. So African leaders, I am saying, wake up. A new era is being introduced. Let's take advantage of it and let's put in our best negotiators.
I also like the idea of trade, but it has to be done with parity. And what I see so far is that that is still not the case. I still think the negotiations happening between Africa and the United States, including the DRC situation, which I think they're going to come on to soon, does not provide Africa with what it needs in return for what Africa gives it back. Africa needs manufacturing. That means they need know-how, they need infrastructure. And so far, the deals that I've seen are more for security. Yes, security is needed, but knowledge, information, infrastructure, so that we can learn how to get ourselves into the manufacturing sector. And so next in this part, she talks about the deal with the DRC, something that I've spoken about in the last couple of videos, and I made a video dedicated to this situation. Let's hear what she has to say.
Most of us are waiting to see exactly what are the details of these negotiations. We do not want a new situation where the United States is basically replacing what China has been doing in the DRC, what the Europeans, particularly France, have been doing in the DRC. What I'm hoping is that just like what China did when China decided to come and move into Africa, they looked at what it is that the United States and Europe were getting wrong. A lot of it was limiting funding to African countries. So China came in, found a loophole, found a weakness in the US and European strategy, and they came in with just pouring monies into African leaders. President Trump should look at it and say, what has China done wrong? Because right now, a lot of people are very angry at China. I know many countries that I've visited. If you go to the countryside with the Chinamen, they'll run you off because they're sick and tired of what the Chinese are doing in Africa. The United States need to look at it and say, what is it that China is doing that's making Africans so angry? They come up with a different angle, but let's look at trading with Africans in a fair and equitable manner. I do not know what the details are for the agreement between the US and DRC and Rwanda. But what I would hope is that they were negotiations that are fair, negotiations that are equitable, negotiations that will, in due course, if this is a situation where the United States is trying to take advantage of the Africans, it's just a matter of time before everything boils over. So it behooves the United States to treat Africa fairly. For a change, let's have a country that can trade with Africans in a fair manner. All I'm asking is for Africans, don't be stupid anymore. Do not come to the United States looking like beggars. You have a lot that the United States wants. You have a lot that the world wants. Stand up tall. Have the to stand up like any other man on earth and defend us. As Africans, we are counting on you. We are sick and tired of giving up our natural resources for peanuts. So yes, African leaders, do not come to the United States as beggars. Come to the United States as equals to negotiate with President Trump. Do not take any rubbish that he throws at you. Do not allow him to bully you because he has what you need and you also have what he has what you want. So this is about trade. We are going back to the basics. Our leaders, before the colonizers came to Africa, the different tribes traded as equals. We're going back to that environment. Let's embrace it. Let's look at it for what it is and may the best men win. Africans, wise up. Come to the United States prepared because President Trump will trump you. President Trump will kick your rear end if you're not prepared.
The first thing I want to tackle here is what she said about China. You see, I've been very kind of positive towards China of late because I see China building infrastructure. I see China not trying to impose their ideology. They just come to do business. For me, that is an upgrade from what the Europeans and the Americans were doing previously. But she's right in that what China's doing is not perfect. And again, it's for us to trade and negotiate so that we get parity even with them. And if you remember, she said that China came in and found what weaknesses that they could spot between the relations of Europe and Africa and America and Africa. Now, we want to create a situation where Trump should come in and see the weaknesses of China. This is how you have competing partners working for the best deal for you. You got two people wanting the same stuff, which is the resources of Africa. Well, now we've got a way to play these two sides off against each other to get the best deal for the continent. The other thing that backs up what I've been saying recently is that if the deal is not good with Trump, is that basically we need to wait and see what the deal with DRC and Rwanda is like. She said if the deal is not good, it will fall over. And that's why we don't go around saying he needs a Nobel Peace Prize for just signing the deal. We need to see the results sustained for years to know that that deal was good or not. Because we don't know if that deal was actually predatory or not. We don't know what they've signed, what they've agreed to. And time again, African nations have signed terrible deals. The CFA Franc, the continuation of colonization deal, was terrible. Recently, we've just had the president of Botswana talking about how bad the diamond deal with the Boers is, where they get only 15% of the diamonds that were put in the ground. And when they got a chance to buy back 50%, taking their percentage to 65% of their own diamonds, they rejected it. So that other interests profit more than the country itself from those deals. So Africa has got a history of doing terrible deals. That time should be over. And if Trump is coming forward saying we want to ditch aid and do trade, then let's get the trade right.
We don't need aid. How long have we been getting aid, and what do we have to show for it? It has been an instrument of making sure that they keep Africa where they want Africa to be. Let it all go. We need trade, not aid. Trade with Africans fairly, they do not need the aid. If you look at what is coming out of Africa through other nations, through exploitation of our natural resources, there is no comparison to the aid. Let's trade with Africa fairly. That's why I'm saying the era that President Trump is ushering in is an era that we must embrace as Africans, but let's be wise. Let's not sell. Let's not mortgage our children's future. We do not need aid. They all must go. When you look at the damage that they are creating in Africa, people need to understand. When you would see a clinic that was run by USAID, most of those activities were in areas that are mineral rich. That clinic is being used as a way of monitoring the uranium, to making sure that the minute somebody starts digging, where is that uranium going? They're keeping an eye on the natural resources. So let's make no mistake about it. If it was about looking for poor people, there are plenty of poor people. Tell it to Mayor Bass in Los Angeles. Tell it to the governor of the state of California. Tell it to the mayor of New York City. The homeless people in Los Angeles, the homeless people in New York City. Tell it to the governors of the states, the southern states. There are people who still don't have electricity and running water. Where are the signs for USAID? Don't stop putting wool over our eyes. It's not about gallivanting around the world, going around 10,000 miles away from the United States looking for poor people when there are millions of poor people right here in the United States. Charity begins at home. Let's be serious, people. Do not be fooled. USAID was not going to Africa looking for poor people. Far from it. They have a different agenda. There are poor people here, right here in America. And until we start seeing USAID flags in the streets of Los Angeles taking care of all the homeless people, until we start seeing USAID flags in the reservations, American Indian reservations, where they don't have electricity and running water. Come on now, talk to me. That's a facade.
She's already explained how USAID was connected to the CIA and covert operations, regime change operations, and we just don't want any of that. We also don't want to come to the world with our hand out as beggars. Who wants to be beggars for 100 years? We want to trade and we want parity. Fine. We don't want exploitative trade either. So the world needs all of the rich resources that Africa has. Fine. Come play ball with us. Take your military bases, take your meddling, take your CIA. We don't want any of that. And let's sit at the negotiating table and make some good business that is a win-win for both sides. What's wrong with that? Now, I know this sounds great and powerful and strong, but I think we have to also bear in mind that history shows us that some of these countries, America included, are willing to go to really far lengths to mess in the politics of other countries for their own gains. Same with France, same with all the countries in Europe. So this is something we have to be vigilant for and have to be very aware for. And that's why it's imperative for there to be integrity and non-corruptibility in the leadership of Africa. I know that's a really difficult task, but we must strive for it. If anyone wants to see the full interview, I'll link it in the description below. But right now, I would like to know what you think about Dr. Arikana and these comments. Feel free to put your thoughts in the comment section. But if you have nothing else to say, would it be too much for me to ask you to write the words "fair trade for Africa"? It just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you like what I'm doing, and you want me to continue. Thank you so much for watching this video today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.